one. Shalom, Ambassador David Friedman. It's wonderful to have you with us to talk about your new film, Route 60. Thank you for joining us. And where did the idea of making a film about the biblical heartland even come from?
Well, thanks, Tilly. It's great to be with you. And well, I think the idea really started when I took my post in Israel as the U.S. ambassador. And one of the first things I wanted to do was to go to Judea and Samaria, not for religious reasons, although I'd gone there many times before for both, because of how inspirational it is from a religious perspective. But I'm a diplomat representing the United States, and Judea and Samaria is the most sensitive diplomatic part of Israel. And I wanted to go there. I wanted to speak to people. I wanted to speak to 500,000 Israelis, who live there. Not all of them, but certainly some of them. Wanted to speak with Palestinians who live there. I wanted to get, a real firsthand sense of the conflict and the issues, and then be able to suggest perhaps solutions, or at least report back to my government. And I was told by the State Department that just being there, an American diplomat may not, cross the green line. And as I kind of dug deeper into this issue, what I found was the United States government really was engaging in a self-imposed commitment to ignorance of this land, of all it means to the Jewish people. And as I kind of got deeper into the job, I realized it wasn't just America; it was the whole world. Almost the entire world just views views Judea and Samaria as this place they call the West Bank, which they view as just sort of some strip of land in the Middle East. That's the subject of a fight between peoples for the last 100 years, without any real understanding of what this means. That this is actually the land of the Bible. I mean, when it comes to biblical stories and biblical events and biblical heroes, vast majority of those stories and events took place inside Judea and Samaria. And in fact, it's the reason why the Jewish people are called Jews, because they come from the kingdom of Judah. So, this entire narrative, which is entirely true, is entirely hidden from the world. And, we got out of office, and I went to my friend Mike Pompeo, who saw the world the way I did, and who had done great things while in office to, reverse State Department policy and make it clear that it's not against the law for the Jewish people to live in their biblical homeland. And I suggested to him, maybe we'll make a film where we can bring all these places to the public, so that we can change the perspective and maybe get people to care about this land in a different way. Stop thinking about it as some nondescript strip of land that you just kind of divide it up some way and you'll have peace, which is a pipe dream in all cases. But understand what it means to the Jewish people and what it means to the people of the Christian faith. This is where the Jewish faith was born. This is where the Christian faith was born. This is where the heroes of both faiths, where they ruled and where they walked and where they preached. And he was very excited about it. We got our friends at TBN to provide the resources, and off we went, and we made this film. And it really is designed. If you ask me in one sentence, why'd you make it? It's so people will care about Judea and Samaria. We don't propose a solution to the conflict. We don't get into the politics, but we just want people to care about it, to understand what it means and what it should mean to people of faith, or people who just have a deep historical appreciation for this holy territory.
You can see in the film that you care, and that Secretary Pompeo cares very much about the biblical heartland. Is there any location in particular, and you went to so many, Bethlehem and Hebron and Shiloh and all over the biblical highway, Route 60. What is your favorite location?
Well, you mentioned a few great places. One place that I had never been to before, and maybe that's why it stays in my mind, was the altar of Joshua. In particular, because it's really just kind of on the side of the road, very nondescript, very hard to get to. I doubt tourists go there. Look, I've gone to Israel 100 times or more and never been there before, so that tells you that it's obviously not on anybody's list of tourist sites. Um, Look, Joshua brings the Jewish nation across the Jordan River. He fights with Jericho. He fights in the kingdom of Ai. He wins a war, loses a war. Now, and he really comes to this place as he was commanded to do in Deuteronomy, in the section of the Torah we actually read this past week. He goes and he builds the altar on the downslope of Mount Ebal, and he builds it with the stones that he was commanded to use, and he writes his own 10 commandments. And I think this is where Joshua really became the leader of the Jewish people. He realized he's not just a general. He's not just there to engage in battle, but he's actually there to fulfill the will of God and to build the Jewish nation in the way God envisioned. And I thought that was an extraordinary place. The other place that always kind of gets me, and I talk about it in the film, the personal reasons, but I'm always struck by the tomb of Rachel, and in particular, just her story. Right, the three other matriarchs are at rest in the cave of the patriarchs and matriarchs and Chevron. She's not. She's buried on the side of the road, on the way to Bethlehem, and she's never at rest. And we know that from the book of Jeremiah, she's crying for her children. But Jeremiah, has that beautiful prophecy that that God is hearing Rachel's cries, and that there's a reason and a purpose to all of her prayers, and that as they say, the famous words in Hebrew, "V'shavu banim ligvulam," the Jewish people will return to their land, will return to their borders, and so that to me is always a highlight of any trip. I've been there many times, but I could talk about Shiloh for hours. I could talk about Beit El for hours. Of course, Jerusalem is the holiest, the most important place in the world, so that's easy to talk about. So there's a lot in the movie.
And I'm glad that you mentioned Joshua's altar and that you highlight it in the film, because it's in the news today, and it's in grave danger of being destroyed. There were Palestinian PA. I'm missing the word. They were about to destroy it. The PA had equipment in their heavy equipment to destroy Joshua's altar, and they found plans to build homes literally on top of it. In 15 minutes, they could literally destroy the entire thing. What, in your opinion, in your experience, what is the problem? Why would one of Israel's greatest biblical heritage sites not be secured by Israel, and what could we do to secure our connection to these important sites?
Well, look, I think this is a huge problem, and you mentioned it to me a couple of days ago, and I immediately put out a tweet. I don't usually, call upon the Israeli government to do things. I respect the rights of the government to run their affairs as they choose. But here, I called on the Israeli government to protect the altar of Joshua, because they have to. No one else will. And this is an extraordinarily important site. And it teaches us, I think, a very important lesson, which it's a point that I make subtly in the film. But if we don't maintain control and sovereignty over our biblical holy sites, and remember, we're the custodians of these sites, not just for the Jewish people, because there's also over 1 billion Christians that care about these sites, that care because they look at the same Bible that we do and see the extraordinary wisdom and the stories, and they care about these sites as well. And Israel has a responsibility to preserve these sites. They're extraordinary places. Frankly, they don't get the attention they deserve. Not just Joshua's altar. Like, I went to Beth El. There's 50 places in the United States called Beth El, right? It's such a major place. It has such biblical significance. It's the place where Jacob had his dream with the ladder. I mean, everybody knows about Jacob's ladder. Also, not easy to get to. Not in a particularly hospitable site. I think it's safe and protected, but it's not what it should be. I mean, this should be a top 5, certainly a top 10 heritage site within the state of Israel. But I don't want to completely blame Israel. And part of the problem is that the entire world sees this area as, illegally occupied territory, and they're wrong. But because these places are so sensitive and so politically charged, because every time Israel does anything to assert its sovereignty over any of these places, it becomes a battle at the UN Security Council, and it becomes front page news at the New York Times, and it gets condemned by the European Union. I mean, every little inch of this land, which is so holy to Jews, the rest of the world wants to keep it from us. And so I think that Israel, with lots of issues on its plate, sometimes maybe may take their eye off the ball here because they got other things to deal with. But nobody should. I mean, we have to preserve, not just preserve, we have to preserve and enhance and develop these sites and make them available and accessible to the entire world, because these sites belong to the world. That's how important they are.
Yeah, and there's also what's happening in Jericho also this week, that UNESCO is discussing Jericho as a Palestinian heritage site.
Yeah, how could that
And
be?
yeah, what are they trying to achieve by, continuing to disconnect the Jewish connection to the land and invent Palestinian heritage when it doesn't exist?
Look, the Palestinians have been at war with history, since the Holocaust. I mean, you just heard a couple of days ago, President Abbas gave a speech saying that Hitler wasn't anti-Semitic. Hitler was just acting out against Jews because he disapproved of their financial practices. I mean, imagine this: we give $500 million a year to this guy who doesn't think that Hitler was anti-Semitic. They have they have a problem. Their problem is they want to insert themselves on land that was given to God by the Jewish people. So they have to fight not just with the Jewish people; they have to fight with God, right? They have to fight with history. They have to fight with the Bible. They've been trying for years to discredit any connection of the Jewish people to their holy sites. Here's the dumbest example. They claim that the Jews have no connection to the Temple Mount, right? But that Christians do. They acknowledge Christians do, but Jews don't. Well, how could that be, right? The only connection the Christians have is through Jesus, who prayed at the temple as a Jew. So they're not even trying to be intellectually honest or consistent. They just want to, and the reason that they're doing it is because they're succeeding, because there's just a whole bunch of countries and peoples that are willing to accept this false narrative, and we have to fight against it. And I think one of the things this film does, I think it lays to rest any doubt as to the history of this holy land. I mean, we go from place to place. We don't just make things up. We quote from the Bible as to what happened in these places, and so everything is supported with biblical texts and references, and I think that makes it very hard to dispute.
Now, where could people watch the film? Where is it going to be shown, and how could people see Route 60?
So for the American audience, we're starting with the American audience. It's being released into theaters on September 18th. We have a limited run on September 18th and 19th. And the way to see the film on one of those 2 days is to go to route60.movie, ROUTE, the number 60, route60.movie. When you go on the site, you click on buy tickets, and then you will type in your zip code. Once you type in your zip code, you'll be directed to the theaters that are closest to you. So you can say, I want to be in a theater within 10 miles, 50 miles, 100 miles, whatever. You find the theater closest to you. You can then buy tickets at that theater, select your seats at that theater, and enjoy the film. And I think this is really something that families will enjoy. You can bring your family there, and especially people who haven't yet had the privilege of visiting these places. You could visit you could come to this with your family. I think it will provoke very interesting discussions. It will cause people to recall the Bible stories that they learned when they were younger. I would think it will bring the Bible back to life for people, make it real. What I say, people ask you what was the best thing about being there. When you're there, when you study the Bible, and I've been studying the Bible, my whole life, and I encourage people to do that. I encourage people to read it. But when you are there, it takes it out of the realm of a legend out of the realm of a myth, and it brings it into the world of truth. It makes it true. You see that it actually happened. You see the Bible is true. It actually happened. The people actually lived. The stories actually took place, and here's where they did. And I think it's, it's just a great, family experience. People who are, who follow the Bible, even people who just are curious about this. It's a great experience, I think, for parents and children to come in and see the film and enjoy it together.
So I look forward to showing it to my children. I live in Israel, so you mentioned that it's being starting in America. Is it going to be available internationally or in Israel?
So the next thing we're going to do is, we're going to come to Israel. I'm waiting on Secretary Pompeo's schedule because he's a lot busier than me. But I think towards the end of October, we're going to have a premiere in Israel. We've already put Hebrew subtitles on the film, and we're going to then screen it in Israel for as long as people want to watch it. And then, I think it will eventually, go the course of all films to be on a streaming platform. But I think I hope people see it in the theaters because it's there's something about seeing Mount Ebal on a 30-foot screen. I mean, the majesty of this land is extraordinary, and I hope people get to see it on a big screen. I think it's really the best way to see it.
Well, thank you very much for explaining the importance of this film, and I'm sure our viewers and those watching will want to see it as well. Route60.movie, and thank you, Ambassador Friedman.
Thank you, Rabbi Tully. It's always good to be with you.